Okay, well, it was an extraordinary time because I'd only been in the job for about 6 months, and we knew that there was an investigation going on and into corruption activities, and we'd been working with or providing information to the ICAC. And so with that, we were able to put together some sort of an idea about what issues were going to be raised. And on the information that we'd been provided, we felt it was going to be a reasonably contained issue about misbehaviour of one or two people, and one particular person who was a member of council staff. So our planning and preparation for what was going forward was quite a compressed inquiry into a reasonably tightly defined area of inappropriate behaviours. So what happened was when the public hearing commenced, and I think it was the 18th of February 2008, I remember the day well, when the council assisting outlined what was the full gamut of what was going to be alleged, we were just stunned. Clearly some of the core issues we were very, very aware of. In fact, one of our staff, I terminated one of the staff over that particular matter. It was virtually the first thing I'd done in my coming into the organisation. But much broader things that involved councillors and involved activities of other parties outside I guess that core issue would just stun me, and I just the breadth and the all pervasiveness of it was extraordinary. I was extremely fortunate in as much as I was able to palpably, certainly to all the people in the organisation, bear clean skin, and I think it would have been extremely difficult going through in my role if you'd had any real involvement, even if it was only minor or peripheral. The advantage of having no, being completely clean through that process was really empowering and was essential, I think. Had a whole range of emotions. Had people who were just outraged at what had occurred within the organisation. You also had people who were just despondent at what had happened, people who they'd placed their trust in had let them down. The fact that they were being smeared because of the actions of others, well, it was a really, really difficult time. It's still there, but it's nowhere near the surface. It's nowhere near as severe and significant now as it was 18 months ago. We've been working on policies and processes, in fact the organisation was working on those things before I arrived, but I sort of helped move those things into a higher gear, and so many of the major implementations and recommendations of the ICAC were actually almost in place by the time the public hearing was in place, because we knew these things were occurring. Obviously the change to administrators created a watershed as well, the removal of the councillors. Clearly, some people had very interesting views on elected rep level on what their role was and how they would, what their involvement in affairs, in civic affairs should be, and that watershed change made it easier to reinforce how important some of these things were. What you get with administration is highly experienced public officials guiding you and driving the organisation forward and getting a lot of things done. And we've been getting a lot of things done. And but what you don't do is get that significant community involvement that you just naturally get when you've got 13 elected reps. But when you do have an elected representative thing, you often get slower decision making, indecision, a whole range of inefficient practices. So you lose things with a democratically elected council over administration, but there are other benefits, and as I said, the benefits are things get done. The organisation is being changed. We're pulling costs out of the place. The community's getting better value for money than it has in the past. So it's an interesting trade-off. It's not my role to comment about what should happen and when it should happen, but they are very different situations, and I can understand why some people feel that administration is is a great thing. I can also understand why people demand their democratic rights. We'd had a range of projects and programs that were running behind time, and the administrators put an enormous amount of pressure on myself and the staff to say, well, listen, you catch up all that backlog of projects and get all that work. And we delivered $73 million worth of capital works last year, right throughout the city, from massive amounts of road resealing, improving footpaths, a whole range of small projects from one end of the city to the other. And you would have had to be asleep in May and June of this year to not see this massive amount of work. When I got here, there were I guess the two standout things that were closed, locked off the community because we didn't have enough money to repair and reinvest in those, and that was Belambie Ocean Pool, and the other one was Wollongong Town Hall. And Belambie Ocean Pool is underway now. We're reconstructing that particular facility, and the Town Hall is out to DA, and we anticipate starting work on the Town Hall and refurbishing the Town Hall before the end of the year. The Wollongong CBD was refitted and refurbed in the mid-80s. Since then, there's really been little to no money spent on that, and I talk about the CBD as going down to the foreshore and back to the railway station. We've got an ongoing program. The Blue Mile program is part of that, and that's underway now. We've started to do the first phases of that. There'll be some significant work happening in the mall over the next few years to refurb that area, but it's not just that, it's the footpaths and the public domain area throughout the CBD. That needs to be done effectively, and to work it also has to be done in conjunction with the private sector investing in the building stock there. We've made significant strides on infrastructure, addressing the infrastructure. West Epdale is about to be gazetted, and the CBD, we're doing major works on the Blue Mile, and we're starting to move towards planning and funding the inner city work. This is a really interesting question. I've worked in a number of councils. I think I've worked in about 4 completely separate councils in my career. And they each develop a culture which sort of, at the elected level, which sort of feeds on itself, because when you have an election, typically you don't have a wholesale clear out. If you've got 13 on council, you lose 4 or 5 and you go and 4 or 5 new people come in, and in some ways they learn behaviours from the people who are there, and it sort of repeats. The opportunity now, clearly the culture at Wollongong Council was very, very unhealthy, and it wasn't necessarily a combination of the people who were there. That may well have been a contributing factor, but it was also the culture of how they behaved, what was seen as being inappropriate behaviours. Was learned as you came in. This is the way you behave. What we have a real opportunity now is when we return to democratic government, is to start with a clean slate, because there's no one to learn from. They set their own rules, and it'll be really contingent on the administration, the staff, when they come in, to try and give them the bones and the basis to really create a very healthy, constructive culture that avoids the problems of the past and builds on the real strengths that you can have here. But I guess the shock treatment of the removal of the elected reps gives a real opportunity for a healthy rebirth of democracy at a local government level.